And so welcome to the 5th edition of Fabulous Fiery Females. And I'm so glad to see you all here. And although today is Tisha B'Av, culminating 3 weeks of period of mourning on the Jewish calendar, and some folks are still fasting, I am not fasting, and so I will be drinking as I need to. And so it is customary to not have concerts. So this is not a concert. This is a musical educational presentation. And we will be focusing on Chava Alberstein, and most of the songs, actually I think all of the songs are more on the sad. And we're going to start this from the beginning. And so we are going to talk about Chava Alberstein. And Chava Alberstein is the second of our women who is still living. And her birth year is somewhat in question. Facebook says 1947. A bunch of other places say 1946, but based on the year that she went into the army, I think that it was 47, sorry, not 1946. So she was born Eva Alberstein in Stettin, and thank goodness for Google Translate that has a sound player that can tell you what these words sound like, because Polish is very tricky. You want to mute yourself? Somebody's microphone is making a lot of noise. So if everybody could please mute themselves. Great, thank you. And so so obviously her parents were Holocaust survivors. I did find one interview where she talked a little bit about that, and we'll discuss that later in the program. So 1946, and she has 47, and she has a brother who is 6 years older than her. So not clear in what circumstances, if he was born in 1941. I have not found any place where she discusses what her parents went through during the Holocaust, whether they were hidden, whether he was born and then they went to a camp, I don't know. In 1951, they moved to Israel, and her name was changed to Chava. And she talks about how in the early years, you can see in this upper picture here, they lived in tents. And then later, the Israeli government built tin huts in what are called ma'abarot, from the Hebrew word avar or ma'avar, and these were transit camps. The camp actually was named Sha'ar Ha'aliyah, the gate of Aliyah, or immigration to Israel, which was squished together into Sha'ar, which was a Hebrew song at the time. So it was a very traumatic experience moving to Israel. And her brother, who was older, was even more traumatized. They moved from the camps to Kiryat Bialik, which is north of Haifa. And she says in an interview that they never forgot the arrogance of the natives towards those people who were immigrants. And there was a sketch about this several years later, showing each wave of immigrants and how they came, and how the previous wave of immigrants made fun of the new wave, and how they talked and how they dressed. So this was part of life in an absorption country. So in 1964, before she joins the military, she appears in the Hammam nightclub and really yearns to be a singer. 1965, which if she was born in 47 makes her 18, which the math adds up. And she joins the IDF and is in one of the entertainment troops. This is a theme that has been recurring for us with these women. And in the army, she was part of a roving entertainment troupe, a singer, a stand-up comic, and an accordion player. And she says, and I quote, "It's the best school for a singer. The conditions were awful. I had huge glasses, my skirts were always too long, and there I was with a big guitar." It took several years before she started performing without the guitar. And the shock of seeing me kept them quiet through the first song. Then would come the cat calls. It was physically scary, a struggle for survival, she says, but gradually she learned how to command the crowd and would occasionally sneak in a song in Yiddish. So while she was in the army, she talks about in one of her interviews, performing at Hechal Shlomo in Tel Aviv. It's a huge performing hall, and she recalls being on stage with these 400 singers, and she gets pushed to the front to do her solo, and how terrifying the pictures of her. And if you've seen, I have pictures of myself, you know, with these humongous glasses. And she is discovered by the well-known composer Nahum, otherwise known as Nachche Heman. And he helped progress in her career. Somebody's mic is on and it's a barking dog. So if you want to make sure that you are muted, please. Hi, Eileen, I'm glad you were able to get on. And so 1967 is an exciting year. She puts out 3 record albums. So she gets out of the army, and Nahum Heyman throws her into the recording studio. So the first album is called Chava Alberstein Sings Hebrew Songs. And this establishes her as a voice in the world of Hebrew songs in Israel at the time. Her second album is called Osnat's Toys, which is an album of children's songs. And as we've discussed, this is a whole very important genre in Israel in the first 40 years or so of her existence. And so she is now established as one of the stratosphere of Israeli singers, and she wants to release a song in Yiddish. Now remember, she was born in Poland, so Yiddish was her mother tongue. And hang on, we'll get to this in a minute. And she wants to release a record in Yiddish, and she is very much recommended to not do so. And I'll talk about why in a minute, but she insists that this is important to her, this is her heritage, and so she is going to release a record. She releases a record called Yiddish Song, Haben mir a Niggendel, I have a little song. And this basically establishes her as one of the top Yiddish singers in the world. And so the first song we're going to sing is a Yiddish song. And I'm going to go through the text in general, then we'll talk a little bit about the Yiddish and Yiddish language as compared to Hebrew. So this is called Oifen Pripetchik, which is At the Hearth, music and lyrics by Mike Warshawski. This is one of the songs when my father was failing and he was in rehab at the end of his life, and I was bringing music in for him, and this was one of the songs. And so anybody want to read, or am I reading? Don't all volunteer at once. Okay, so this is the chorus down here. Study children with great desire. Don't let your learning, maybe I didn't, I think I didn't put the chorus here. We'll do the chorus on the next page.
No, you want me to read it?
Sure, that would be great, Bonnie, if you don't mind.
The whole thing, or starting from In the Little Hearth?
In the Little Hearth, yeah.
In the hearth flickers a little flame. Warmth spreads through the house. And the rabbi teaches little children the Hebrew alphabet. Study children with great desire. Don't let your learning lag. Whoever learns the lesson very quickly will receive a flag. I don't know who the poet was in English. Study, little ones, do not be afraid. Every beginning is hard. Happy is the man who studies Torah, great is his reward. When, dear children, you will older be, you will understand it all. The pain that lies within these letters and the tears that fall. As you endure our years of suffering, their burden you will bear. Be inspired by these little letters, their message for all to share. In the little hearth flickers a little flame, warmth spreads through the house, and the rabbi teaches the little children the Hebrew alphabet.
Thank you, Bonnie. So what I have here is the Hebrew alphabet, the Hebrew and Yiddish alphabet, and it's the same alphabet, but the vowels are very different. So you can see here on my right, I assume it's on your right on the screen, the vowels or the dots that we use for the Hebrew letters. And so you take one of these vowels, you combine it with one of the letters or one of the consonants, and you get a sound. Yiddish is written with the same letters. However, some of the letters are vowels. So an aleph is always an a. So if you wanted to do ba in Yiddish, you do bet aleph. If you want to do ba in Hebrew, you take the bet and you put a line underneath it. Same way, ayin is so be would be bet ayin. In Hebrew, bet would be bet with the segol, the 3 dots under it. A yud is e, bet yud is b. In Hebrew, if you want it to be b, you add the dot. Now, in the early days of pre-state Zionism, there was a very heated argument as to what should be the language of the new country. Should it be Hebrew or should it be Yiddish? My grandfather, my father's father, was very active with the Yiddishists. He actually knew all of the early Zionists, and we were very disappointed. He has a lot of letters that he wrote to my grandmother, and he only wrote love letters. So he didn't write anything with any political gossip in it, which is what we were hoping to, to have some information. But he knew Ben Tzvi, he knew Ben Gurion, he knew all of those guys, and we said, had the Yiddishists won, he would have been a footnote in history. But the argument was that Yiddish was the language of those who went into the ovens. Yiddish was the language of the Galus Jew, the exiled Jew. And the state of Israel is starting a new country with a new strong Jew. And so the language is going to be Hebrew. So in Eastern Europe, where they spoke Yiddish, just because they could read this alphabet didn't mean that they could read Hebrew, even though there are many words that are similar. So those of you who learned Hebrew as a second language may remember the readers where they had ba, ga, da, ha, va, and so on. And so in this song, the rabbi teaches komitz. Now this is Ashkenazi Hebrew, Ashkenazi pronunciation, not Sephardi pronunciation. Modern day Hebrew is pronounced Sephardi, so this kamatz, would be pronounced but in Ashkenazi pronunciation, it's komitz. So let's say that, komitz, like you say chometz for Passover, because that's the Ashkenazi pronunciation. So you take komitz, aleph, o. Okay, and if you look at this line right here, komitz, aleph, o. Okay, and so if you were to continue, it would be komitz base bo, komitz vase vo, and so on and so on and so on through the alphabet. Okay, so here is the chorus, and it was very hard to find a Yiddish song with the chorus because a lot of them are just ballads that go on and on and on and on, and the melody repeats, but the words are always different. So, Zetche Kinderlach, Gedenkte je Tayere. Okay, so listen carefully, remember little ones. This translation is not word for word. It's literary translation. Okay, so Zetche Kinderlach, your turn. Zetche Kinderlach, Gedenkte Tayere, Gedenkte Tayere. Was ihr lernt do, what you're learning now. Was ihr
lernt
do. Okay. Zogche means say. Zogche nochamol. Repeat it once again. Zogche nochamol. Untake nochamol. And again repeat it. Untake nochamol. So the whole line. Zogche nochamol. Untake nochamol. Yeah, Claudia, I think you need to mute yourself, if you don't mind. Thank you. And what are you repeating and repeating again? Kometz aleph o. Okay, so let's say, and the recording she sings, it's really slow, painfully slow. I heard it growing up with Theodore Bickel, and he sang it a little quicker. Okay, so Zetche Kinderlach gedenkje Tayere. Was ihr lernt do. Zogche noch amol und take noch amol kometz aleph o. Okay, Zetchekinderlach. She actually sings it lower. Zetchekinderlach. Gedenkjeteiere. Was ihr lernt da. Sag noch einmal und tage noch einmal. Kometz Aleph. Oh, the first time goes off. Repeat the second two lines. Sag noch einmal und tage noch einmal. Kometz Aleph. Oh. Okay, I'm going to do that. Some of you are singing along already. I'm assuming it's familiar to some people. Here we go. Please let me know if you'd like me to do this line by line. Anybody need it line by line? Okay, Bianca, if you want to unmute yourself, do you want us to do it line by line?
Yeah.
Okay, we will do it line by line. If you could go back to mute. Here we go. Zeg shekinderlach. Repeat. Zeg shekinderlach. My turn. Gedenkjeteiere. Your turn. Gedenkjeteiere. My turn. Was ihr lernt da. Your turn. Was ihr lernt da. My turn. Sag noch einmal. Your turn. Sag noch einmal. My turn. Und tage noch einmal. Your turn. Und tage noch einmal. My turn. Kometz Aleph. Oh. Your turn. Kometz Aleph. Oh. Do bigger chunks this time. Sag noch einmal und tage noch einmal. Your turn. Sag noch einmal und tage noch einmal. Kometz Aleph. Oh. Now I'm going to switch to, go back. Switch to the YouTube, and we're going to sing it together with Chava we're right here. And this recording has all of the text for you in English as she sings. Okay. Here we go. Kinderlach, Gedenkjeteiere, was ihr lernt da. Sag noch einmal und tage noch einmal. Kometz Aleph. Oh. Repeat. Sag noch einmal und tage noch einmal. Kometz Aleph. Oh. Okay, so we'll go back to the beginning of the song. If you have your song sheets, the melody for the verse and the choruses is exactly the same. She sings pretty slowly. So if you want to risk trying to sing the Yiddish words, knock yourself out. Here we go.
Kometz Aleph, kometz baseball, kometz Gimel, go. Euchen Pripitschik brennt a Feier und in Stub ist heiß und der Rebbe lernt kleine Kinderlach dem Aleph Beis und der Rebbe lernt kleine Kinderlach dem Aleph Beis. Seid Kinderlach, Gedenkjeteiere, was ihr lernt da. Sag noch einmal und tage noch einmal. Kometz Aleph, oh. Sag sucht noch amor und Tage noch amor, kommt Telefon. Als wird Kinder älter werden, wird ihr alleine verstehen, wie viel in die Äußers liegen Tränen und wie viel gewählt. Wie viel in die Äußers liegen Tränen und wie viel gewählt. Seht ihr Kinderlach, gedenkt ihr Teire, was ihr lernt dort. Sagt ihr noch einmal und Tage noch einmal, kommt alles vor. Sagt ihr noch einmal und Tage noch einmal, kommt alles vor. Sie wird Kinder und Goles schleppen, ois gemutscht sein. Sollt ihr von die Ois jetzt koiach scheppen, guckt in sie an. Sollt ihr von die Ois jetzt koiach scheppen, guckt in sie an. Seht ihr Kinderlach, gedenkt ihr Teile, was ihr lernt dort. Sagt ihr noch einmal und Tage noch einmal, kommt alle vor. Sagt ihr noch einmal und Tage noch einmal, kommt alle vor. Kommt alle vor, kommt Baseball, kommt Himmel,
Okay. So, and you could hear one of the things that makes her so wonderful, which is that beautiful expressiveness, that even though you don't understand all the words, you're very, very moved by her singing. And those of you who were at the Nurit Hirsch presentation on Sunday, which was wonderful, Nurit talks about her as being one of the few, her and Yoram Gaon as the two remaining singers in Israel who really express the words deeply. So, hang on, go back. Okay, so in 1973, of course, we have the Yom Kippur War. And for Israelis, I put this quote up, she's always been an icon, singing the innocent and romantic Zionist and land of Israel songs, poems by the most famous Hebrew writers like Leah Goldberg, Yehuda Amichai, Tzvi Karmi, and Zelda, and songs written especially for her by the country's leading lyricists. And so we're now going to look at two songs that are on this Lu Yehi album, which also spotlight something that she, I think, was and continues to be very aware of, which is women composers and lyricists. So the first one we're going to look at is called Solveig. And this is a song by Daphne Eilat, who sadly died young of cancer in 2002. And she is the poet and composer that you never heard of and should know who she was. And I was shocked to read about Daphne, that in Arik Einstein's premiere album, which was a huge hit, and probably every song on that record became a #1 hit in Israel, she wrote 11 poems and set six of them to music in his first album in 1966. And so she worked with Alberstein for many, many years. And in a fairly recent interview that she has posted on, can you hear the dog barking outside? Because I will close it. Hang on, I'll close the window. Neighbors with dog, not my dogs. And so she and Chava Alberstein were very close friends. And in a recent interview that is on her Facebook page, which unfortunately none of the stuff on her Facebook page is translated into English. And she talks about, she was asked about how does she know that a song is right for her? And of course, many people send her songs, and they send her songs that are songs like the songs that she's already done. And she's typically not too interested in those because she's already done those songs. And so she said that when she was visiting with Daphna, and the score for Solveig happened to be out on the piano, and she took one look at it and she said, well, I have to do this song. And so this song is going to be our next sing-along. And this is a woman's story. The story of the loyal woman who waits behind. And so this is the poem as it appears in its literary form. And then the chorus gets modified a little bit in the song. So anybody care to step up and be brave and read? No? Okay. So this is a story of Per and Solveig. Oh, Liba, yay.
I'm
Great.
happy
That
to
would
do
be
it if you
wonderful.
like.
Thank you.
So Per went out on a journey, Per the dreamer. Per left behind a woman with 2 braids. Per is a man, not a prince. Women surrounded him, but in the evening at the end of his journey, he returned home to Solveig. Solveig in the little cabin, Solveig looking out the window. Solveig is not beautiful, but she loves you so much. Per met a princess, Per the dreamer. Per left with nightfall. A small woman with braids. Yes, the princess was corrupt. She wanted his soul, but suddenly he turned and returned home to Solveig. Oh, I'm sorry, I realized that I might have read it wrong.
That's right. No, that's right.
Oh, okay. Per met a princess, Per the dreamer. Per left with nightfall. A small woman with braids. Per met a corrupt woman. She wanted all of him. He went, but suddenly turned homeward to return to Solveig.
So very much, thank you so much,
You're
Liba.
welcome.
A woman's song, very much about a woman. And so in the chorus, there's repetitions of Solveig's name, lots of Solveigs. And this is an example of the kind of interesting and complicated melodies that Alberstein liked to sing. So here's the text. Solveig babikta haktana. Ready? Your turn. Solveig babikta haktana. And we repeat her name twice. Solveig, Solveig. I'm not going to have you repeat all the times that she says the name because it's easy. Solveig בחלון מצפה. Solveig בחלון מצפה. Solveig, Solveig. Solveig איננה יפה. Solveig איננה יפה. And then there's a long but. אוהבת אותך. And we say that 3 times. I spelled it wrong. There's no A on that, אוהבת. אוהבת אותך, 1. אוהבת אותך, 2. אוהבת אותך כל כך, so much. So she's waiting בבקתה הקטנה, in the small cabin, בחלון מצפה, at the window. איננה יפה, she's not beautiful, but she loves you. And I have this vision of, you know, the houses with the widow's walk, that they're sitting up there waiting for the whalers to come home, all of these women who sit and wait and sit and wait. And a little bit in my head, because she's not beautiful, she doesn't tell him.
Leah?
Yeah.
Why, I mean, Solveig and Per, these are very Scandinavian sounding names. Where does that come from?
I have no idea. I have no idea. This was obviously, I don't know anything about Daphna Eilat. There's about 3 lines, 3 lines about her in Wikipedia. Like I said, she's the woman poet and composer that we should know about and don't. So I have no idea. Okay. Oh gosh. Sorry. Oh gosh, I wrote the wrong, all right. I'm gonna go to the YouTube because I wrote the wrong pitches for me. Okay. And let's go to the YouTube so that she can help us with the chorus. And that's it, 36. So I'm just going to play it once and then I'll teach it to you just so we know what the key is. Okay. That's all I needed. Here we go. And back to here. Solveig בבקתה הקטנה, סולווג, 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 בחלון מצפה, סולווג, 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 איננה יפה, אוהבת אותך, אוהבת אותך, אוהבת אותך כל כך. Okay, line by line. סולווג בבקתה הקטנה. 1, 2, 3, 4. סולווג בבקתה הקטנה. Listen. סולווג, סולווג. Ready? סולווג, סולווג. Let's put those two together. Okay, I think you can sing straight along with me. Let's do it 2 times. Here we go. Solveig, 2, 3, 4. Solveig, babikta. Solveig, solveig. Listen once now. Solveig, bachalon metzapa. Solveig, solveig. Okay, so solveig, bachalon metzapa. Solveig, solveig. Okay, next bit. Solveig, enena yafa. Your turn. Solveig, enena yafa. And now my favorite part. אוהבת אותך, אוהבת אותך. אוהבת אותך כל כך, אוהבת אותך, אוהבת אותך, אוהבת אותך כל כך. Now we're going to sing it through with the YouTube in case I messed it up, because it's a little tricky. Here we go. Some people are able to embed the YouTubes in their PowerPoints. And my version of Office is a little older, so I can't do it. So I have to do the back and forth thing. Okay, so here we go. Here we go. Solveig, בבקתה הקטנה, סולווג, 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 בחלון מצפה, סולווג, 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 איננה יפה. אוהבת אותך, אוהבת אותך, אוהבת אותך כל כך. All right, we're going to do that one more time with her because it's a little quick. All right, there we go. Ready? Solveig, בבקתה הקטנה, סולווג, 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 בחלון מצפה, סולווג, 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 איננה יפה, אוהבת אותך, אוהבת אותך, אוהבת אותך כל כך. All right, we're going to go to the beginning. If you have the song sheet, you can follow along. And notice, it's kind of interesting how the melody changes between the verses and the chorus.
פר יצא למסעיו, פר איש החלומות, פר עזב מאחוריו, אישה קטנה עם זוג צמות, פר שאיננו נסיך, הוא גבר, סובבו עלמות מכל עבר, אך עם ערב בתום מסעיו, הוא הביתה אל סולבג שם. סולבג בבקתה הקטנה, סולבג, סולבג, סולבג בחלון מצפה, סולבג, סולבג, סולבג איננה יפה, אוהבת אותך, אוהבת אותך, אוהבת אותך כל כך. פגש במסיבה, איש החלומות, עזב בחשיכה, אישה קטנה מזוג צמות, כן בנסיכה הוא פגש, בת שחת, היא ביקשה את נשמתו לקחת, אך לפתע הפך את פניו, והביתה סולבג שם. סולבג בבקתה הקטנה, סולבג, סולבג, סולבג בחלון מצפה, סולבג, סולבג, סולבג איננה יפה, אוהבת אותך, אוהבת אותך, אוהבת אותך כל כך. פר פגש בנסיכה, פר איש החלומות, פר עזב בחשיכה, אישה קטנה מזוג צמות, פר פגש באישה, בת שחת, היא ביקשה את כל כולו לקחת, ועליו ולפתע שב על הכיפה, והביתה סולבג שם. סולבג בבקתה הקטנה, סולבג, סולבג, סולבג בחלון מצפה, סולבג, סולבג, סולבג איננה יפה, אוהבת אותך, אוהבת אותך, אוהבת אותך.
And I'm going to pause it here. There's another minute of la 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 la, and we have a lot to do, and there's a lot that I want to play for you. So, of course, so that's Daphna Eilat. Somebody's mic is open, so if you don't mind muting yourself. Hi, Roberta, glad you could join us. So, Naomi Shemer and the Beatles. So one of the most famous songs that came out of the 1973 war, and the title track on Chava Alberstein's album, and a song that you hear forever with her voice, just like Jerusalem of Gold, you always hear Shuli Natan, is Leah. And so what I didn't know and found out is that actually Naomi Shemer wrote her words to Let It Be. And if you try to sing Leah to Let It Be, you will find that most of it aligns pretty well. Her husband, her second husband, told her that she could not release a song that was so intimately related to the Israeli experience of the Yom Kippur War with a foreign melody. And so she adjusted some of the text, and thus was born Lu Yehi, which is not quite let it be. It's more like if only it would be. Okay, and so it's more like may it be. So this is the text. Lu Yehi, Ana Lu Yehi, Kol Shenevakesh Lu Yehi. And you will notice when we read through the text that the end of each verse is that Kol Shenevakesh Lu Yehi. So what I'd like to do is teach you that right now by ear. And instead, when we get to all that we ask, may it be, let's practice saying Kol Shenevakesh Lu Yehi. Ready? Kol Shenevakesh Lu Yehi. Roberta, you need to mute yourself, please. So do I have a volunteer to read the text here? We've had 2 brave volunteers. Do I have a third? Mary
I'll do it.
Okay. Barb, why don't you do this one? Mary Alice, you can do the next one. We actually have a 4th one today. Okay, Barb. And remember when we get to that 3rd line, we're all going to go. Barb, do it in Hebrew, okay?
Okay. There is still a white sail on the horizon, opposite a heavy black cloud. All that we ask for.
Do it in Hebrew.
Kol Shenevakesh Lu
Yehi.
Yehi. And if in the evening windows the light of the holiday candle flickers, Kol Shenevakesh Lu Yehi. Then it goes, what is the sound that I hear, the cry of the shofar and the sound of drums? Kol Shenevakesh
Lu Yehi.
If only there can be heard within all this one prayer from my lips, also all that we
Kol
Shenevakesh Lu Yehi. I've got to look, I've got to move this. Within a small shaded neighborhood, in a small house with a red roof, Kol Shenevakesh
Lu Yehi.
This is the end of summer, the end of the path. Allow them to return safely here. Kol Shenevakesh Lu Yehi. And if suddenly, rising from the darkness, over our heads, the light of a star shines, Kol Shenevakesh Lu Yehi, then grant tranquility and also grant strength for all those we love. Kol Shenevakesh Lu Yehi.
So, yes, Nomi Shemel, the wonderful poet. Okay, so. I think it's Kol Shenevakesh Lu Yehi. Yeah, Barb, you got to mute yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah, so that line returns a lot. Kol Shenevakesh Lu Yehi. Ready? Here we go. And Kol Shenevakesh Lu Yehi. And the chorus goes, Lu Yehi, Lu Yehi, Ana Lu Yehi, Kol Shenevakesh Lu Yehi. It repeats, Lu Yehi, Lu Yehi, Ana Lu Yehi, Kol Shenevakesh Lu Yehi. I'm pretty sure that that is the wrong key. I don't know what I wrote here. It's when you write notes with letters instead of with like actual pitches. All right. So, and this video has all the English words for you. So let's just review it once with her. Here's the chorus. All right, so we're going to go from the top, and if you don't catch it the first time, by the 5th time, I'm sure you'll find it. Here we go.
עוד יש מפרש לבן באופק מול ענן שחור כבד, כל שנבקש לו יהי. ואם בחלונות הערב אור נרות החג רועד, כל שנבקש לו יהי. לו יהי, לו יהי, אנא לו יהי, כל שנבקש לו יהי. לו יהי, לו יהי, אנא לו יהי, כל שנבקש לו יהי. אם המבשר עומד בדלת, תן מילה טובה בפיו, כל שנבקש לו יהי. אם נפשך למות שואלת, מפריחה ומאסיף, כל שנבקש לו יהי. לו יהי, לו יהי, אנא לו יהי, כל שנבקש לו יהי. לו יהי,
לו יהי,
לו
לו יהי,
כל שנבקש לו יהי. לכל ענות אני שומע, קול שופר וקול תופים, כל שנבקש לו יהי. לא תשמע בתוך כל אלה גם תפילה אחת מפי, כל שנבקש לו יהי. לו יהי, לו יהי, אנא לו יהי, כל שנבקש לו יהי. לו יהי, לו יהי, אנא לו יהי, כל שנבקש לו יהי. בתוך שכונה קטנה מוצלת בית קט עם גג אדום, כל שנבקש לו יהי. זה סוף הקיץ, סוף הדרך, תן להם לשוב הלום, כל שנבקש לו יהי. לו יהי, לו יהי, אנא לו יהי, כל שנבקש לו יהי. לו יהי, לו יהי, אנא לו יהי, כל שנבקש לו יהי. לו יהי, לו יהי, אנא לו יהי, כל שנבקש לו יהי.
So I assume that many, if not all of you, have heard this. Honey, welcome, and would you mind muting yourself, please? Thank you. Okay, so in the 1970s, after the war, she releases the album Kmo Tzemach Bar. It's hard to translate Tzemach Bar. A tzemach bar, I guess, is an indigenous plant, which doesn't sound very romantic. And so I grappled with like wildflower, but it's something that grows naturally in the wild. And these songs are, if you remember, when we talked, those of you who were here, when we talked about Shoshana Damari, when we talked about Yafa Yarkoni, we talked about all of those old songs that are all written from the male's perspective. And here are these female singers, and they're singing in the male tense. And so Chava Alberstein really focuses on the woman's voice. And they're very personal. These are most personal songs that express her. And I very much identified with this song, being also a transplant. And if we remember her words about moving to Israel in 1951 and living in the transit camp and how difficult it was. And I forgot to mention that the street, she mentioned in an interview, the street that she lived on in north of Haifa in Kiryat Chaim was Mavo Kna'an, as in Kna'an Alley. And so she had this image, she is, as a poet, she is a woman who is so sensitive to words, said, and here we came, you know, these dispersed exiles, and all of Kna'an, all of ancient Palestine was in our alley. But she always felt like a little bit of a foreigner, a little bit of an outsider. So I just want to play you a little bit of this song, like, and so I chose to translate it as an alien plant, because the text of the word, it really discusses her feeling like an alien. So we're not going to listen to all of this. I don't know about you, but for me, whatever she sings, I get goosebumps right away. Even if you don't know all the words, there's just something so moving and so emotional.
אל תחפשו אותי, מי שידע למחול, אם חללי אל אהבתי, הזמן ישקיט הכל. אני הולכת לדרכי, זה שאהב אותי ישוב לשדותיכם. מן המדבר, והוא יבין, אני חייתי ביניכם. כמו צמח בר.
And so I'll stop it here, but it's tomorrow I'll be far away, and the one who loved me will come back and be amongst you again, and I will remain as always an alien. I get choked up just I mean, she starts singing and I immediately get choked up. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful song. And so a lot of these are available on YouTube. And you notice that very few of them are available with video. And so in the 80s, and of course we need to have a little bit of a scandal, because all of these singers do. In Israel, when you are writing songs and singing songs that are connected with the history of the country, that are connected with wars, that are connected with political changes, which Israel, after the 1973 war, underwent a sea change where people suddenly were not so sure about whether we were always the good guys and what we were doing was the right thing. And so in 1980, she begins writing her own songs, her own music and lyrics. And in a later interview, she says that she is not driven, although she is very much engaged in poetry and she loves poetry and she constantly reads poetry, she's not so much driven to write lyrics as she is driven to write melodies. But so she transitions into an individual protest style, similar to our other singers who have gotten into trouble with publicity. She is early to take a leftist stance. So she releases an album called Mehagrim, Immigrants, about the immigrant experience. She works with her husband, Nadav Levitan, who died in 2010, for an album called End of the Holidays. She writes music for his film. And in 1989, she releases Chad Gadya. And I'm going to play you, it starts at the beginning with the Pesach, and I'm not going to play you all of it. I'm going to come in at the point where it's, you know, the final verse about the angel of death, and the angel of death kills the butcher who kills the ox and so on. And then it goes into a very aggressive protest message. And again today, given that she has a 50-year career and counting, we're going to go a little longer than we usually do. Let me find my, here we go. And this one, this one is worth listening to the whole thing when you have a chance. It's 5 minutes long. The animation for Chad Gadya changes with each verse, and to me becomes more and more disturbing, and I'm sure that that's deliberate. But it does have the English titles.
פתאום את שרה חד גדיה, אביב עוד לא הגיע ופסח לא בא. ומה השתנה לך, מה השתנה? אני השתניתי השנה. ובכל הלילות, שאלתי רק ארבע קושיות. הלילה הזה יש לי עוד שאלה, עד מתי יימשך רק הלילה? הלילה הזה יש לי עוד שאלה, עד מתי יימשך רק הלילה? רודף ונרדם, מכה ומכה, מתי ייגמר הטירוף הזה? אני השתניתי לי השנה. הייתי פעם כבש וקדישה לב, היום אני נמר וזאב טורף. הייתי כבר יונה והייתי צבי, היום איני יודעת לי אני. וזבינה ובזריזות, עד גדיה, עד גדיה. כנבי נוגדי בשני סוסים, שוב מתחילים להתחלה.
So you could see where this would be would raise some issues for people. You know, the animals that she talks about, of course, the peaceful animals are used in the writings to describe the people of Israel, and instead of a lamb and a deer, we're now the leopard and the lion. And so this is a criticism of the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza at the time. And she says in 2002, it took time for people to understand. She said, today people see that the occupation causes us to be violent. And I'm not going to go into the politics of the occupation, but you know, when you commit acts of violence, even if they are righteous and justified acts of violence, it still affects the perpetrator of the violence in a very difficult way. And so this led basically to her being banned in Israel. I don't think I have this on the next slide. No. Her music was banned from the radio. Her performances were canceled. The same story as we had with Yafa Yelkoni after she spoke on the radio criticizing the army. And so her work begins to focus more internationally. She's internationally acclaimed, especially as a singer of Yiddish. And so in 1999, she scripts a documentary film, Too Early to Be Quiet, Too Late to Sing. A link for that is on the Fabulous Fiery Females webpage. It's not a great documentary in that it's not clear what she wants to say. They have a lot of footage. The editing is not clear. It is worth watching. I think I remember that I think I remember that it has subtitles. And there is a poem. What the documentary talks about is the survivors, the Holocaust survivors, who were Yiddish poets who are still alive in Israel at the time that she makes this documentary. Actually, the poet Binem Heller, who wrote Mein Schwester Chaya, died a year before the movie came out, because he died in 1908. In 1999, the documentary came out. So it is worth watching to just hear these poets read their Yiddish poetry in their own voice. And I'd like to play you Mein Schwester Chaya. I'm going to do a screen share, and you'll let me know if you can see both the text and the YouTube. I haven't tried this before, but let's see if it works. If I can do desktop, here we go, desktop. Desktop, share. Nope, it doesn't work. Okay, so hopefully you have opened up the Mein Schwester Chaya song sheet, because I chose the one, this is performed by Chava Alberstein. There is one by a different performer that does have the lyrics in English, in titles underneath. But I really wanted you to hear her introduction, and listening to this this song. So do you have the lyrics? Do you need the link? Hang on, I will get you the link and share that in the chat. Give me half a second. I did send a link to that with the confirmation of the meeting. So there were two links. There was one for the song sheet and one for Mein Schwester Chaya. Here it is. Okay, everyone. Okay, here is the link. And so open that up, and when the YouTube goes to full screen, where is it? Oh, okay. When the YouTube goes to hang on, I lost myself. Oh, okay. When the YouTube goes to full screen, just sorry, got lost. Just do a split screen. Here we go. Okay. So that you can see both things, because I really wanted you to hear her sing this, and I wanted you to hear her introduction. And I'm going to play the whole song, even though it's long.
The next one is here, one of the last of the Yiddish poets in Israel explains why he goes on writing songs in Yiddish, although he lives in Israel, where everybody speaks and understands Hebrew, of course. And he tells us about his little sister, Chaya. She didn't have 10 years old yet, and she took care of him and all the other little brothers at home when mother went out to work very early every morning. Little Chaya cooked them and washed them. She only forgot to play games with them. Little Chaya was murdered by a German soldier in Treblinka. And now he, the poet Binem Heller, is the last man on earth that still remembers her. That's why he goes on writing songs in Yiddish for her, because this was the only language she understood. And maybe, who knows, she is still listening somewhere.
Schwester Chaya mit der Grüne, meine Schwester Chaya mit der schwarzen Zähne, die Schwester Chaya, was hat mich der Zeugen, aufs Motsche Gas in Haus mit krumme Tränen. Die Mama ist weg von Stubagine, wenn auf den Himmel oder Streu gehört. Sie ist weg in Kromerei verdienen, das bittene, drobne, grosche, dicke Geld. Und ich ist geblieben mit den Brüdern, und sie hat sich gekommen und gehielt. Und sie pflegt singen sie die schönen Lieder, vor Nacht, wenn kleine Kinder werden müde. Meine Schwester Chaya mit der Grüne, meine Schwester Chaya mit der langen Haar. Die Schwester Chaya, was hat mich erzeugt, ist noch nicht alt gewesen, kein zärtlich Jahr. Sie hat geräumt, gekocht, der Land das Essen. Sie hat gezwungen uns die kleinen Kinder. Noch spielen sich mit uns, hat sie vergessen. Die Schwester Chaya mit der schwarzen Zähne. Meine Schwester Chaya mit den Augen grün. Ein Teil schon hinter Blinken, sie verbrennt. Und ich bin in der jüdischen Medine, der Same letzter, was hat sie gekannt. Schreib ich auf Jiddisch meine Lieder, entdeck die Schreckliche von unserer Zeit. Bei Gott allein ist sie Abbas Yechide, im Himmel sitzt sie bei seinem rechter Seite. Schreib ich auf Jiddisch meine Lieder, entdeck die Schreckliche von unserer Zeit. Bei Gott allein ist sie Abbas Yechide, im Himmel sitzt sie bei seinem rechter Seite.
So I don't know about you, but I cry every time I hear that. and when I heard the poet read the poem, of course, there was no explanation at the beginning, so I didn't know where he was going to go. And when he talked about his sister, it was quite a shock. Just for hearing him read the poem, it's worth watching the documentary. And so this was meant to be kind of a farewell, a eulogy to Yiddish. It turned out to be a burst of creativity. The melody for Mein Schwester Chaya, even though it sounds like a folk song, was a melody that Chava Alberstein wrote. She wrote 30 songs in 3 months from using the poems that she got from the poets that she interviewed, and released an album called The Well. And I didn't write I think with the klezmatics. So really quite remarkable. So she continues on her career. In 2005, she receives an honorary doctorate from Tel Aviv and tours Israel for the first time. And now she's made her comeback. It's become much more popular to be anti-occupation. It's become much more popular to be anti-aggression by soldiers. And so she comes back to Israel. Her social media presence is much less sophisticated than Achinoam Nini. She's on Facebook. If you want to see what she looks like now, she's done some live streaming concerts. They are aimed at the Israeli public. They are, from the most part, in Hebrew. And so for the last bit, as I mentioned at the beginning, I was going to talk a little bit about her being a child of survivors. And so she speaks with tears in her eyes about whether her legacy is enough. Has she done enough for the world? And she tells of being a high school student and writing books and books of poetry, very bad poetry. Very bad poetry, and she goes through it when she's an adult as somebody who's somewhat of an expert on poetry, and she throws things out, and she keeps these few lines. ולהתייצב בפני האלוהים עם שתי גומות של חן ועם שישה מיתרים קרועים. To stand in front of God with 2 dimples and 6 torn strings, and she has been thinking and imagining, what it would be like, can she justify her life to God after she dies? Has she done enough? And as it happens, she is commissioned Nomi Shemel to write her a song about ending. It's called Shir Siyum, a song of the end. And because of this story that she told, I knew we were going to go long, but I had to include this song because the story was just so wonderful that I couldn't not include it. And so she says she approaches Nomi Shemer, who is a previous generation of her and is of course a superstar poet. This is a song from the 1970s, and you'll see, actually might be even earlier, you'll see in the video how young she is. And she visited very hesitantly. She says, if there's any way for you to include these lines, I've kept them all these years. I think they're pretty good. And so Nomi Shemel comes back to her with the text of the song, and these lines have become the refrain of the song. So Mary Alice, I believe you had volunteered to read and didn't get to read the last one. So you're up.
Okay, Shir Siyum. The crickets sing to themselves in summer, and the short days pass in summer, and the ant will sing in a sad voice. Dear violinist, you already sang. Now it's time to dance. I don't care. It's actually quite pleasant to sing you the wildest songs and to stand in front of God with 2 dimples and 6 broken strings. The saxophones reply, heach, heach. The flutes are so clear in the evening, the kettle drums are beating, the violins sing, and only the poor ant only sees blackness. Meanwhile, go in peace, my brothers. Tomorrow the dawn will rise for you and me. Now black velvet spreads over the city. Now we can say goodbye and part with a song.
So, of course, Naomi Shemer at this point is quite a poetess. And those of you who might have noticed, this is, from the fable about the grasshopper and the ant, and preparing and not preparing. And so, לי לא אכפת, לי דווקא די נעים, לשיר באוזניכם את השירים הכי פרועים. That should be a U, not an O. ולהתייצב בפני האלוהים, עם 2 גומות של חן, ועם 6 מיתרים קרועים. All right, so לי לא אכפת, line by line. לי לא אכפת, לי דווקא די נעים. Your turn. לי לא אכפת, לי דווקא די נעים. My turn. לשיר באוזניכם את השירים הכי פרועים. Repeat. לשיר באוזניכם את השירים הכי פרועים. My turn. ולהתייצב בפני האלוהים. Your turn. ולהתייצב בפני האלוהים. It should be עם שתי גומות, my error. עם שתי גומות של חן ועם 6 מיתרים קרועים. Your turn. עם שתי גומות של חן ועם 6 מיתרים קרועים. אוקיי. לי לא אכפת לי דווקא די נעים לשיר באוזניכם את השירים הכי פרועים ולהתייצב בפני האלוהים עם שתי גומות של חן ועם 6 מיתרים קרועים. Okay, line by line. Lots of words this week. לי לא אכפת לי דווקא די נעים. 1, 2, 3. לי לא אכפת לי דווקא די נעים. My turn. לשיר באוזניכם את השירים הכי פרועים. לשיר באוזניכם את השירים הכי פרועים. Similar melody. ולהתייצב בפני האלוהים. Your turn. ולהתייצב בפני האלוהים. My turn. עם שתי גומות של חן ועם 6 מיתרים קרועים. Your turn. עם שתי גומות של חן ועם 6 מיתרים קרועים. The whole chorus. 1, 2. לי לא אכפת לי דווקא די נעים לשיר באוזניכם את השירים הכי פרועים ולהתייצב בפני האלוהים עם שתי גומות של חן ועם 6 מיתרים קרועים. All right, we will go to Chava. All right, and it does have the words in Hebrew for those of you who can read it. All right, this is right at the chorus. I think we're in the same key, but I might be wrong.
לשיר באוזניכם את השירים הכי פרועים ולהתייצב בפני האלוהים עם שתי גומות של חן ועם 6 מיתרים קרועים.
Okay, we go to the top.
הצרצרים בקיץ שרים להם ימים קצרים בקיץ עוברים להם והנמלה תשיר בקול עצוב מאוד כנר יפה זימרת כבר עכשיו אולי תרקוד לי לא אכפת לי דווקא לשיר באוזניכם את השירים הכי פרועים ולהתייצב בפני האלוהים עם שתי גומות של חן ועם 6 מיתרים קרועים. עונים הסקסופון החלילים הערב צנועים חלקם, לפי הגדוד מכים, שרים הכינורות, רק הנמלה האומללה תמיד רואה שחורות. היא לא אכפת מדווקא עיניים, לשיר באוזניהם את השירים העבריים, ולהתייצב בפני האלוהים עם שתי גומות של חן ועם 6 מיתרים פרועים. היו שלום בינתיים, אחים שלי, מחר יאיר השחר לכם ולי. עכשיו כתיבה שחורה נפרסת על העיר, עכשיו אפשר שלום לומר ולהיפרד בשיר. כי לי זה לא אכפת, לי זה דווקא די נעים, לשיר באוזניכם את השירים הכי פרועים, ולהתייצב בפני האלוהים עם 2 גומות של חן ועם 6 מיתרים פרועים.
So I know we went long, but 50 years of career, and I just had to do it. So unless there's anything anybody else wants to say, where I think we were all tired. Next time.
Is she still singing?
She is still singing.
She's my age.
She is. She's still performing. There is a young Israeli singer, pianist, Shlomo Shaban. And she did a program with him actually during the quarantine. They went to Hechal Shlomo and performed there live streamed. And they did Solveig, and it was him on piano, and what he did was phenomenal. So yeah, she's on Facebook. You may have to look for her in Hebrew. And like I said, her documentary, the link to her documentary is on the FFF website page at the Colorado Hebrew Chorale. So in 2 weeks, we will do Nechama Hendel. And I already have lots of stuff, but she died at 62, so we don't have 50 years of career to deal with. Laila Tov, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah.
Thank you, Leah.
See you soon.